Good evening, and welcome to the Springman Middle School virtual commencement ceremony for the graduating class of 2020. My name is Dan Polonsky, and I'm one of the assistant principals at Springman. Under normal circumstances, this is the time I would tell everyone to silence their cell phones, to not take flash photography, to keep applause for each student to a minimum until all names are read, etc., etc., etc. But I suppose one benefit of all of us being at home is that we can let loose in a way that we wouldn't ever be able to if we were in the Glenbrook South Auditorium. So, feel free to cheer as loud as you want, take pictures with the brightest flash you can find, and enjoy the first graduation ceremony of its kind in the history of Springman. Let's all give a raucous round of applause for our Springman Middle School graduating class of 2020. To start off our ceremony, I'd like to introduce Natalie Jaktorowicz, our Board of Education President, to share some thoughts about this year's graduating class.
Dear graduating class of 2020, this is not the graduation ceremony that you expected. These are unique times, and so are all of you. You are a class like no other. Although it might be hard to see today, rest assured that the class of 2020 is destined to become a historical and cultural reference point for generations to come. Everyone will remember the class of 2020, and you have good reason to be proud to be a part of it. What you are all experiencing will shape you and your future in ways that you might not be able to see right now. Whether it's days, years, or months from now, you will come to fully appreciate the lessons that you have learned. You've heard your parents and teachers talk about resilience. Well, now you have lived it. You understand how important it is to bounce back from disappointment. You've also learned the value of adaptability in helping you to adjust to unforeseen circumstances. But perhaps most significantly, each of you has gained a measure of grit, the strength of character to keep going in the face of adversity. Those who have it don't see their difficulties as being a reason to quit, but as an opportunity to become better equipped to deal with challenges in the future. With these qualities, resilience, adaptability, and grit, you will be well served in the future. So don't look back. Look ahead, because you have so many wonderful things to look forward to. In high school, you'll be faced with a myriad of choices and opportunities. What friends to make, what classes to take, what sports you might want to play, what activities to pursue, or maybe what cause to further. The choices you make will define you. The lessons you've learned will guide you. Follow your hearts and forge your own future. I wish you much success and happiness. On behalf of the District 34 Board of Education, it is my honor to congratulate the graduating class of 2020.
Thank you, Natalie, for your kind and thoughtful words. The commencement comments this evening will be provided by representatives from the graduating class. These students have reflected on their years at Springman and the many lessons they've learned as students and citizens of our learning community. We thank them for sharing their insights tonight and for giving us something to think about as our 8th graders prepare for their transition to high school. I am pleased to announce the student speakers this evening are Claire Boehm, Lazar Alinsky, Marie Koo, Trevor Lytell, Abigail Yang, and Danny Zimmerman. And first, I'd like to introduce Claire Boehm.
Elie Wiesel said we must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. You will experience injustice and cruelty in your life. It may be directed at you or your friend, or maybe your friend doing it. Everywhere you go, you will see bullying and peer pressure. It won't occur just in high school. All through your life, you will see cruelty, and you will be faced with a very important question. What are you going to do about it? Will you step in and defend the oppressed, or stay silent and turn a blind eye? It may be hard to stand up, so will you take the easy route and remain silent? However, always remember that the one who stays silent in the face of oppression is just as bad as the bully, and that you can decide what kind of person you want to be. When I was little, I was taught that my brothers were my team, and that we did everything together, whether we won or lost. We were very close with our next-door neighbors, but we still had scuffles sometimes. One day, my brother was hanging out with one of our neighbors, and I was sitting on the neighbor's porch with the blanket of night just starting to settle around us. As I was sitting on the cold porch, my brother and our neighbor got into a small scuffle, and our neighbor shoved my brother. Now a wave of anger raged in my 6-year-old chest, and I marched over to the two boys. Then, being the extremely tough, 2-foot-tall child I was, I fell on 2 arms shoved my neighbor. Stunned, he stepped back and shook his head, but he left my brother alone. When I was marching over to my neighbor, I wasn't worried about the consequences of my actions, like what people would think, or the fact that I was half my neighbor's height. I saw that you can't just stand by in the face of oppression, because that just makes you just as bad as the bully. You can't always shove your way out of problems either, but it's better than doing nothing at all. You always have to stand up for what you believe in. You just have to be a free little 6-year-old, with no fear of what will happen, who just always does the right thing. This experience helped me understand the best reaction to injustice and oppression. I always try to model my behavior after my little 6-year-old self, that was free of judgment and free to do whatever was right. However, as we get older, we become more self-conscious and self-aware. It gets harder to stand up for people when you are worried what other people might think or say. What if people turn on you and you lose your friends? Then it gets so much harder to stand up against injustice. For example, a while ago, a new girl joined my soccer team, and some people on the team were wary of her arrival and weren't as welcoming as they could have been. I tried to stick up for her, but it was so much harder with so many people thinking differently than me. I was worried what other people would think if I was the only one who stuck up for her. What if no one passed the ball to me anymore? I was too self-conscious to do the right thing as easily as I had when I was a free little 6-year-old with no fear of consequences. I learned that sometimes getting older doesn't make us wiser. It actually makes us more foolish. Getting older and progressing through school makes us more self-conscious and self-aware and less inclined to do the right thing if it may negatively change people's opinions of us. I discovered that as we get older, it gets harder and harder to do the right thing because of peer pressure and fear of consequences. It's a lot easier to do the right thing when you are young and have no understanding of those consequences. As time passes, consequences seem worse and worse, and doing the right thing seems scarier and scarier. I'd always thought that when I got older, bullying would just go away. I didn't have a complete understanding of what bullying even was, but I knew that bullying was mean. I thought that since everyone was smarter when they were older, bullying would just go away. However, as I learned more about middle school, I realized I was wrong, and bullying never goes away. Moving forward into high school and the rest of our lives, there will always be injustice. Wherever we go in life, there will be bullying and peer pressure, and it is up to us to fight against it. We cannot stay in the shadows and let injustice occur. No matter how self-conscious and worried we are of what people think, we have to do what is right. It may not be easy, but we have to do the right thing. I learned that bullying and injustice gives us a choice. Will we stand up or will we turn a blind eye? We can decide what kind of person we want to be and what choice we will make. We can decide to stand up to oppression or pretend we don't even see it. I hope that when the time comes in high school and farther in the future and I see injustice, that I won't be a self-conscious middle schooler who's afraid of doing the right thing based on what people might think. I hope instead that I'll be a tiny little 6-year-old who's free of consequences and always does the right thing. And I challenge you to follow the example of fearless 6-year-olds. Elie Wiesel also once said, "There be times when we are powerless to prevent injustice, but there must never be a time when we fail to protest." I challenge you to be free in your fight against injustice. Whenever you see injustice, fight to correct it. I challenge you to forget others and what they think and do what is right with no fear of consequences. Don't be a scared middle schooler who's afraid of what others might think. No matter what, fight like a tiny little 6-year-old who's free to do whatever is right just because it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Every morning, I wake up to the same beeping from my phone. While the first of 3 alarms ring, I rapidly slap my nightstand hoping that I hit the snooze. As I ride to school, I talk to my parents and watch the same surroundings I've seen for the past 2 years. While waiting to drive in, I see all the new sixth graders. I remember being one of them, confused, anxious, excited, the mix of emotions as you walk through the door wondering what would happen. I thought about how I was once in their shoes, worrying about friendships, meeting new people. Over my time at Springman, I have become very close with people I've never thought I would know, and separated from the people I thought I would always be with. I've also learned that we are in the middle of a unique journey, one that we should all go through and experience. This journey brings us closer together as people, and matures us in a way we may never know. We subconsciously throw away all of our day's experiences and proceed to the next day, continually focusing on the future. But for once, we need to step back. We need to slow down. In 20 years, most of us will probably be preoccupied with more stress than we can currently imagine. If we all want to grow up and get to the real world, we must open our eyes to what is truly happening before them. We are making friends, learning valuable lessons, and making extraordinary progress in our maturity that we might not see now but will be thankful for later. I have come to the critical realization that while most people just want to dash out of school and go to their friends, we must be thankful for our opportunities. Most students around the world do not get to do the same things that we may have gotten to do, and we should be appreciative of our teachers' dedication and effort to improve us as students. More importantly, the effort they put to improve us as people. There are many memories that I have made at Springman with friends and teachers. I enjoy thinking back to when Mr. Mal would sit with us at lunch, talking about his weekend and sharing different stories. To when Mr. Mal would sit with Sam and I during class and discuss things such as challah bread and being a bread connoisseur. And even though we have come to such an abrupt end to our year, the memories I made will stay with me longer than most can imagine. The current situation around the world caused by the COVID-19 pandemic is one that I will surely remember for the rest of my life. Though it has taken so many things from us, our graduation, Six Flags, and getting to enjoy the summer, we have all come together to fight against it, by being there for one another, staying home, and trying our best to stay optimistic during these uncertain times. Albert Einstein once said, "There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. One is as though everything is a miracle." You must think to yourselves, wow, that's simple. I did too. But only when we try to look for the positives in our lives do we also find how difficult it may get. Though we all have our shortcomings, we must not let them define who we are. We must overcome them and know that we can all achieve greatness. In the end, however, our time here will not be remembered by our grades or popularity, but by our relationships, the kind of person you were. These are the legacies we are leaving. So thank you to my teachers, my friends, and all of those who supported me during my time at Springman. It is time for us to move forward in our lives and for us to cherish the moments we have with one another. Class of 2020, it has been a great 3 years with you, and from the very bottom of my heart, I wish you all the very, very best. Thank you.
Finally, middle school's over. If I could describe the past 3 years of my life, I would say that they were the most everything. The most exciting, but also the most scary. The most fun, but also the most stressful. The most difficult, but also the time of the most growth in my life, both mentally and spiritually, but not as much physically. I've made new friends, and I've lost old ones. I've aced some tests and failed some presentations. I've done things to be proud of, but made many more mistakes. And through it all, I've somehow stayed sane and happy enough to make it to graduation. I've learned about so many different things. Quadratics, a religion based around a flying spaghetti monster, how to win at Gimkits, the list goes on. But when I think about the most valuable lessons of my middle school career, they aren't things like quadratics, things I'll forget in a couple years. They're lessons that I will never forget and that I think every person my age should know. So number 1, honesty is the best policy. Fun fact, I think it took me about 13 years of my life to realize that honesty and policy don't actually rhyme. But in all seriousness, I believe that honesty is one of the best things to have in life. I've learned from experience that lying inevitably leads to one thing: guilt, which is one of the worst feelings in the world. You may or may not get caught by others, but you'll always know what you did. Whether it's cheating on a test or telling someone that you have no idea what they're talking about when in reality you know everything about what they're saying, it'll just make your situation worse and make you feel guilty. Number 2, think before you act. We've all learned this the hard way, myself included. Too many stupid mistakes are made just because someone doesn't think before they do something. I'm not going to turn this into a whole second step lesson, so just trust me on this one. It's almost always better to stop and think before you do something that you might regret. Number 3, teaching really is a superpower, so be thankful for your teachers. We often forget that it's hard work to have to put up with all of us for a living. As Mrs. Survey would say, teachers are people too. So next time a teacher tells you to write an essay in one night or moves you so that you're more than 2 feet away from your best friend, don't be mad. Remember that they're doing it for your own good. To show that I mean what I said, I want to say thank you to all of my teachers. Thank you to the teachers who called on me even when my hand wasn't raised, because I know that I would have never worked up the nerve to answer the question on my own. Thank you to the teachers who gave me grades lower than an A for showing me that I couldn't win at everything. And finally, thank you to just all of my teachers for teaching me. I know that I don't always show it, but each of you have had an impact on me as a student and as a person, so thank you. Middle school's over. As much as I'd like to say that I'll miss it, I really don't think I will. However, throughout the past 3 years at Springman, I've made friendships that'll last for years to come, and I've learned things that I'm never going to forget, not including quadratics. But most importantly, I've learned that school is a place of learning and growth, but not just for learning things like math and science. Springman is a place where we all learn how to be better people, and that is what I believe to be the most valuable lesson of all.
Dear Class of 2020, we have finally made it to the end of our Springman Middle School careers. For most of us, we started at Springman in 6th grade, coming from our elementary schools and not knowing what to expect from this new, different, big, scary school. Then we soon realized that Springman was like our second home. 3 years filled with memories and stories, and although our third year was cut, it felt nothing short of a great one. I remember my transition from Hoffman to Springman. I was excited about going into this new school filled with new teachers, new students, new classes, and new experiences. My first day for Springman, however, was filled with anxiety and intimidation by the school's multiple gyms, second floor, and scary teachers. The school seemed so big and confusing with all of its classrooms, lockers, and hallways. It was only until the second week of 6th grade when I realized that the school was just a giant square. My fears and anxiety were shortly overcome when I met my teachers. They were all very forgiving, flexible, and ready to help us succeed, especially Mr. Kelly, who made teaching and learning fun for everyone. My 6th grade year ended with a 6th grade picnic. It was a blast. We got to see our friends and just run around. It was awesome. After 6th grade, I was ready to transition to the second floor of Springman into 7th grade. It was very exciting, not being the youngest grade in the building anymore, and being able to meet all the new teachers. I don't really remember my first day of 7th grade, or my last. I only remember what we did in between. My 7th grade year was amazing. It was filled with activities, field trips, CNN 10 from Mr. Cudia, fun holiday puzzles with Miss Cardenas, interesting reading books from Miss Survey, science projects from Miss Adams, X-Block with Miss Hoffman, and occasionally Mr. Mal. One memory that I will never forget was my first overnight trip at Springfield, Illinois. I remember being very excited when my parents said I could go. I saw many historical sites, buildings, and staying overnight at a hotel with your school for the first time isn't an amazing experience. I was not too sad when the year ended, though, because I knew I would see many of my same friends and teachers. 8th grade was nothing less than my favorite year at Springman Middle School. But unlike 6th grade or 7th grade, I was a part of the oldest group in the school. I had new responsibilities, but also new privileges, and new events to look forward to. Every single one of my teachers had told me that this year was going to fly by quicker than any other. At the time, I didn't really believe them, and I thought nothing of it. But looking back right now, as I'm sitting here writing my speech on my couch, it seems like they were right. It's hard to believe that 1 year can fit so many memories in such a short period of time. One memory that will stick with me forever is my class trip to Washington, D.C. I had already been on an overnight field trip at Springfield in 7th grade, but this one was different. Not only were we staying for more than one night, we were going to the nation's capital, a trip of a lifetime. While I was there, I had the opportunity to see the Capitol building, the White House, the Supreme Court, and many other historical landmarks. 8th grade gave me many opportunities and chances that I will never forget. I was getting ready for an amazing graduation, with going to Great America as the frosting on the cake. Which brings me to where we are today. I know that many of us thought a break from school would not be that bad, kind of like a vacation. But the more we are in quarantine, away from school, the more we realize how much spring was like a second home for us. And although some people might not agree with me, I miss going to school. I miss the morning announcements, I miss my teachers and their classes, I miss being able to see my friends every day. The more I'm in quarantine, the more I see how much of a privilege it is, and it was, to go to school. So to every teacher I've ever had at Springman, I say thank you. Thank you for coming to school every day to educate me and my classmates. Thank you for being patient with us. Thank you for being people who we can turn to when we're help. Thank you for putting up with all of our teenage drama. Thank you for making a commitment to help us learn and grow into mature human beings, ready to take on whatever is next. I hope that quarantine will end soon, but not so that things will go back to normal, so that things will change, so that we can appreciate every single day as a gift and realize that we are very lucky to be a part of the Spring family. I wish everyone the best of luck in times like these, and to stay healthy. Thank you very much.
I'm not great at seeing the big picture in things. I notice a lot of little details, but don't put them together in the way that most people do. For example, I might not notice someone is talkative unless someone else says so. Then I would think, oh yeah, of course they are, but I wouldn't necessarily have noticed that myself. That's why, whenever I figure something out, I get super excited, like when I finish a puzzle, or when I do a mystery grid and finally figure out what the picture is supposed to be. Each year of middle school has contributed to my picture of Springman, each teacher and each student. And the picture is different for each person based on their experiences. When I was younger, I used to think I was a patient person. And I like to think of myself as a patient person because that was a good thing, and we all like to think good things about ourselves. But then one day, I really thought about it and imagined myself waiting around for someone for a long time. And I realized I'm not really a patient person. I thought this was quite funny. I was excited to tell everyone my new discovery. That I am, well, kind of impatient, because that's a wonderful thing to go around telling people about yourself. Disclaimer, it's possible I was a patient person then, but I'm not now. Anyway, if I really want to be a patient person, then I can start exercising patience. If I practice enough, then I can include that in my picture of myself, and hopefully other people will see that in me too. Each individual experience that we go through contributes to the big picture we each have in our lives. I have a bunch of detached little snippets of memories and information that I carry around, and when they come up, I pull them out and wonder where they're from. For example, I only remember a couple things from 6th and 7th grade, and later on, I expect to only remember a couple things from 8th grade in this quarantine. But maybe, if I can see the bigger picture of all this, then all the little details I have will fit together and make sense. Graduating 8th grade is a big step we're taking. It's not the biggest one we'll take, but it is a big step. You might not see the bigger picture right now. Why are we graduating online? Why can't we see each other in person? We might see why in 4 years. We might see why in 30 years. But one day, once we see why, we will understand the big picture. Today is the one day for us to reflect and think about the big picture in our lives right now. I'll tell you one thing I learned about myself. I've always tried to fit in with everyone else. But at the same time, I've always tried to stand out and be different. It's impossible to do both. However, if we all stop trying to be like everyone else, then we'll all stand out and be different. And each of us being different people will force us to all fit in because we're all different, and it will create a bigger picture with everyone in it. Each person, each piece of the puzzle being different, and each being absolutely necessary. And every single piece fitting together with the next. And when you zoom out, it makes a work of art. And the work of art is never final. It keeps on growing with each new experience, each new cherished memory, each new loved friend. And if we view the world this way, then how can we ever be bored? We will always be finding new ways to interpret things, looking for deeper understanding, and relating to each other in ways that we never thought of before. I know Spring's picture is one that I will never forget. And it can only get better from here, moving on to high school and beyond. What do you want your picture to look like? And how are you going to get there? I'm not going to tell you. Try something out and see where it takes you. And remember, even if your picture is somehow unconventional by the standards of the world, art is still art, a creation for others to appreciate and interpret however they want. And the most important thing is that you like your picture, and it is unique to you.
Good evening, parents, teachers, members of the board, relatives, friends, and graduates. It's been a crazy few months, and I definitely did not expect to be giving this speech in my basement. So this is new for me, and I'm sure you've heard the whole spiel of, we're all in this together. So I'll leave that to the repetitive corporate commercials that you've seen so often. I'd like to leave you with something that I learned at my time at District 34. Since the early years at Glen Grove, one constant in my life has been improv. Whether it's drama club, stand-up comedy, or winging a presentation because you forgot to prepare the night before. These experiences have taught me many ways to better myself and the people around me. The main one being yes and. Yes and is a concept that I learned from Kim Green-Hiller, my improv teacher, at the Laughing Academy. Miss Kim always says, yes and is the ability to agree with someone or something and contribute to that idea. It's the ability to listen and be open-minded to new perspectives. It's the ability to learn and teach. Yes and has given me so many new opportunities in life that it's hard to count. The first big yes and moment that I had at District 34 was starting improv classes. If I had not been open to joining that improv class, I might be hesitant to stand here and give this speech today. Moving into middle school with this new yes and attitude, I wanted to be as receptive to as many new experiences as possible. As I was settling into Springman and its multitude of clubs, sports, and activities, many new opportunities presented themselves, one of which was Science Olympiad. I was not sure if I would like it, and I wasn't sure if it was right for me, but I decided, why not? Yes and. I did Science Olympiad 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and I had a blast each season. When I signed up for this new experience, I could not have known the amount of friends that I would make or the skills that I would pick up along the way. I even met a British lady at the British School of Chicago who referred to the elevator as a lift. So I learned a lot of new things, and saying yes and gave me a chance to experience these new things that I could not replicate any other way. It's the things that I didn't expect that make Science Olympiad worth it. But that's the beauty of yes and. You're never going to know what lies ahead. So the only way that you will succeed is to try new things. So as I kept on yes-anding my way through my middle school career, more opportunities were presented to me. From larger commitments like jazz band and being stage manager of the musical, to smaller things like after-school clubs and intramural golf. I learned and gained something for myself through every single one of these events. That's the yes part of yes and. But there's a whole second part to it. Yes and is not only saying yes to a new opportunity, but it's also making it better by contributing to it. Miss Bergman always says the number one rule is to make your partner look good. This idea of contributing to your partner or group is applicable to literally everything you did at Springman. In the classroom, if you are brainstorming, it's better to take someone's idea and build off of it rather than shoot it down. Yes and can help with a social studies presentation. It can further you in a STEM challenge, and it makes your writing better. It's about saying yes and inviting someone into your group. It's about saying yes and building a friendship. It's what makes Mr. Tosh nice enough to come back year after year. If you think about it, yes and is the only way that we can progress and overcome challenges. It's how the teachers took the challenge of remote learning head on. It's how the students learned how to e-learn. Saying yes and keeping an open mind is what helped Mr. Bailey and some of my other teachers accept late work. Yes and is a certain freedom that you give yourself. And you can't have this freedom without saying yes and to who you are deep down inside of you. You all probably just collectively sighed and thought that I'm starting to sound like an inspirational poster in one of the Springman bathrooms. But hear me out. When you give yourself the freedom to be true to who you are, yes and can only make you go further. Think about your career ahead at GBS. My older brother says that GBS is the place where everybody fits in. So why not say yes and to all the opportunities you're going to have moving forward? At the same time, you should celebrate all that you have accomplished your 3 great years at Springman. On behalf of my class, I want to thank all the teachers, administrators, and staff that made our 3-year run at Springman so great. We're so excited and ready to say yes and to our years ahead. And to the students, thank you for an amazing 3 years, and congratulations.
Thank you so much, students, for your poignant and inspiring comments. And now we're going to hear from Jason Kays, Springman's principal, with some parting words of advice and encouragement for this year's 8th graders.
Dear parents, family, friends, staff members, and of course, our graduates. It is a pleasure to speak to you during this virtual ceremony. There definitely continue to be new firsts throughout this quarantine experience, and speaking virtually to you is no different. At the beginning of this year, I did not envision a graduation like this, but being the eternal optimist, I always look for that silver lining. Here, of course, it is the fact that I am able to record as many times as needed to get this right. For you all, I would say it is the fact that you are able to sit comfortably while watching the video, able to pause whenever needed. With that being said, I would like to talk today about teachable moments. I am always looking for the positive in any situation, and during this time specifically, I think it can offer us just that. A teachable moment is defined as an unplanned opportunity that arises in the classroom where a teacher has a chance to offer insight to his or her students. A teachable moment is not something that you can plan for. Rather, it is a fleeting opportunity that must be sensed and seized by the teacher. Teachable moments happen all the time in class. For example, perhaps students don't make the best decisions out at recess, and the teacher, who happens to be the lunchroom supervisor, needs to have a conversation with the class about how better decisions could have been made. I believe these last 3 months have been just that, a teachable moment. But in order to see that, let's first talk about these last 3 years and how we have hopefully prepared you for what we all have encountered during this final trimester. We spend our time as staff at Springman helping students build character traits. And although the grades on a report card correlate to the subject areas that are being taught, it is these personality traits that really are the ultimate goal we build for students to prepare them for high school and beyond. There are so many traits that are important. At Springman, we have identified 6 that encompass all that we hope students gain during their time at Springman, our true portrait of a graduate. These 6 include communication, creativity and innovation, personal responsibility, collaboration, resilience, and critical thinking and problem solving. No other graduating class has gone through what you have during this final trimester. But in that same notion, no other class has been able to prove to everyone else that you have mastered these different traits in such a public showing. You have shown strong communication skills, flexibility as we figured out a plan, and creativity to get things done. And how about resilience? Absolutely. As guidelines continued to be shared and different events needed to be canceled, you showed that you would be able to get through it and allow this pandemic to make you stronger as a class and as an individual. I have been so impressed with this class throughout the 3 years at Springman. From seeing students video chatting with a pre-kindergarten bilingual class and reading books to the students in Spanish, to working with students on the Project Wonder program and hearing how you want to change our school, the community, and the world, which even led to students presenting to the Board of Education. I have seen the amazing things you all can do. I believe that graduation speeches should offer some advice to the graduating class, and so here it is. As you graduate this week and continue to look towards a future that at times might look uncertain, know that everything that happens to you is an opportunity to help you learn and grow. You have shown these last 3 months how much you have grown these last 3 years. You are ready, you are prepared, and I am excited to see that all that you will accomplish in high school. Congratulations to the graduating class of 2020.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kays. And now we'd like to introduce to you our Springman Middle School 2020 8th grade graduates. Okay, graduates, please stand. School board members, Dr. Deli, Mr. Kays, parents, staff, and honored guests, it gives me a great deal of pleasure to present Springman Middle School's graduated class of 2020. Once again, congratulations to our graduates. For those of you who would like to stick around, we have a concluding video of Springman 8th graders sharing their congratulations and favorite memories of their time at Springman. Thanks to everyone for joining us, and have an amazing summer.
Congratulations, Springman class of 2020.
My favorite memory of middle school is probably all the lunches because I got to talk to all my friends.
My favorite memory at Springman was probably the last week of 7th grade because we were all looking forward to summer and it was a fun time.
My favorite memory is the reason why all my friends take my drink at lunch, because one time my friend took my drink after I was being annoying or something and then was pretending to spray it on me and then actually did. And so then all my friends would take it after that and pretend to spray it on me, and then someone actually sprayed it on me again. And so now my drink is a weapon of war between us and my friends.
My favorite memory of Springman was when the Sudan Lost Boys came to our school because it was very educational and very inspiring to hear how they overcame those challenges they faced.
My favorite memory at Springman was in 8th grade. I was in reading and writing class, and Miss Stanton was doing something with my work, and she accidentally deleted some of it, and she accidentally cussed, and I thought that was a really funny situation and one of my favorite memories.
Felicitaciones, clase de Springman del 2020. Congratulations, Springman class of 2020.
One of my favorite memories from Springman was walking around DC and having sleepovers with my friends.
My favorite memory of Springman was when I went to school early for the orientation night to help out because I am an 8th grade mentor. And after people were starting to leave and we were no longer telling people where classrooms were, it was just me and some of my other friends, and we were just walking around, and we were just having a bunch of fun just talking, and that's my favorite memory.
My favorite memory at Springman would be the last day of 6th grade because I got to hang out with so many of my friends and got to celebrate the beginning of summer. And what I'll miss about Springman is the amazing teachers because they have been so helpful and taught me so much over the past 3 years.
The 2020.
My favorite memory from Springman would have to be when we went to Washington, D.C. because it was a really cool experience. It was a lot of fun, and I'm just happy that I was a part of that.
My favorite memory from Springman was probably the last day of 7th grade because it was a really fun day, and I really enjoyed spending it with my friends and saying goodbye to the classmates that I knew I would see the next year.
I remember Springman's how the boys' bathrooms were always closed for some reason.
Congratulations to class of 2020. My favorite memory from Springman was probably going to Washington, D.C. and Springfield with some of my friends.
I'm really busy. Memory of Springman was in 6th grade when me and my friends would always go outside and play tag at recess for the entire recess, and then we would come inside, and the first one to touch the brick wall was safe. And I don't know why it's my favorite memory. I just remember having a lot of fun doing it, and it was a thing to look forward to every day. And I'm gonna miss the nice teachers and people at Springman when I go to high school.
My favorite memory all through Springman was volleyball in 7th and 8th grade.
My favorite memory of Springman was probably when my friend hid in the class closet and knocked on the closet door acting like someone was at the front door.
Will Stevens took mine, so I'm gonna have to say my favorite memory was in 6th grade when everybody around me in our lockers made a locker family and we had to sign a contract with rules like you can't open up your locker too far.
I would say that my favorite
memory in Springman was when I won the Elizabeth Dinsmore Science Award, and that was one of the probably is going to be one of the best experiences that I've ever had in my life.
My favorite memory at Springman was walking into the gym on the first day of 6th grade, and I was absolutely clueless. I had no clue where I was going. I just found my teacher and kind of, just sat around there, tried to figure out what to do, and just, the drastic change and how, everything changed from there on.
My favorite memory from Springman was Washington, D.C. because I got to travel with friends, I got to spend time with them, I got to see new things, and I got to travel alone without my parents for the first time.
My second favorite memory was probably when in 6th grade, me and 8 other friends, we all had this prank wars, and we never really pranked each other. We just liked being a part of something. And now I'm looking back on it, and it might have been the dumbest thing ever, but it was so funny in the moment. It was fun.
Congratulations, class of 2020.
One of my favorite memories probably at Springman was the beginning of 7th grade year, and we were in science class, and Miss Kaiser set off the fire alarm, and the whole school had to evacuate, and I thought that was just pretty funny, and it was a great way to start off the 7th grade year.
My favorite memory from Springman was going to DC and meeting a lot of new people.
My favorite moment at Springman was when Peter McKeth, the Africans, came to our school. Just thought it was really interesting what they had to say.
My favorite memory from Springman was on the first day of 8th grade, and I helped the 6th graders learn their way around the school.
I was in science class, I think in 7th grade. We were doing some kind of lab, and Miss Kaiser threw coffee into fire or something, and the fire alarm went off, and we all had to evacuate. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
One of my favorite memories of Springman was going on the Washington, D.C. trip.
My favorite memory of the 3 years of Springman is meeting my best friends, Maya, Vanessa, and Daisy, and throughout the 3 years growing our friendship to make us stronger for high school.
My favorite memory at Springman was definitely DC because I got to be in a completely different state with all my friends, and I got to explore it, and I saw things that I thought I'd never see ever.
My favorite memory of Springman 2020 was, I would say, my PE class, and there's just one day where we were playing, I think, dodgeball, and we all started trying to go for each other's faces, and we ended up all leaving with our faces just hurting really bad, and it was kind of funny, and it shaped kind of some friends that I made that year because it was at the beginning of the year, so that was definitely a great time I had this year.
My favorite memory from 8th grade was definitely DC because it was very fun and memorable.
Congratulations, class of 2020. Favorite memories was in the play when Chris accidentally knocked over the tree.
Favorite memory at Spring would probably be going to Washington, D.C. and having lots of fun.
What I will miss most about Springman are the great teachers, having a lot of classes with my friends, and not having a lot of stress. In high school, it's less likely to be put in the same classes with your friends, and the stress and workload seem like it's going to take a lot to get used to.
One of my favorite times at Springman here is on the last day of school. Actually, it was kind of something to remember from our last day at Springman. It's when one of my friends, not going to name them though, created a pretty hysterical moment when he fell over a tree during the play.
That's class of 2020.
Favorite memory from Springman would be the last day before quarantine, which was also the last day of 8th grade, but it was pretty fun as I was in the play. I had a lot of fun performing with friends, and we definitely had some very funny moments on stage, and it was a great experience.
Memory from Springman was going to the Washington, D.C. school field trip with my friends.
My favorite memory would have to be last week of 7th grade and just every day leading up to the last day. It was so exciting, and I was with my friends and teachers. It was really nice outside, so I just remember being really happy.
Class
of 2020. We did it!